This is the plot structure elements that we're going to be using in our English classroom, and we're going to use it to help us to analyze what we read, whether it's a short story, a novel, a play, or even to help analyze a movie. So plot structure is just as it sounds. It's the plot or the events, and then structure means how those are organized, laid out, like any kind of structure. And we've been an audience member for so long that it might have slipped our minds, or not, we may not have realized that there's a definite structure or a pattern that's used for telling a story. And that's what this plot structure for me helps to emphasize. Okay, so there's 7 different elements. We're going to start with the first one, exposition. You can read there where it's located. We'll get a graph later. So an exposition opens things up, as it says here. I like to think of it as the camera angle coming into the lives of these characters, comes into their life. It opens up or exposes their setting, the situation, who they are, what's going on. And I like to bring up there that we need a strong exposition. I have to be interested in these characters, or I'm not going to continue reading this book after the first 20 pages. I won't continue watching the movie after the first 10 minutes if I'm not interested at all in these characters. So playwrights, screenwriters know that they have to really hook you at the beginning of this. So the exposition opens things up. The camera comes into these lives, and it usually starts in what Latin is called in media res, which means right in the moment. Something is going on right away, and we're going to continue watching. We're going to get on with this in order to see what happens. We want to follow the lives of these people that have suddenly opened up to us. Here's our second moment that tells you where it's located. We'll get to see a picture in a couple more slides. So to incite is a verb that means to begin something. So someone would get in trouble in the cafeteria if they incited a food fight, or if someone incites a riot. It means they threw the first thing, they started it. So this is the event that gets it all started. And what does it start? The conflict, the tension. Something is wanted. The guy wants to go out with this really popular girl, or vice versa, whatever the case may be, but we're, as an audience, made aware of a desire to win a contest, to win a gold medal, to get into the Olympics, whatever the case is, we're made aware of it. And in that moment, we're aware of a pushing. What's against that person? Maybe there's physical limitations. Maybe whatever it is, we're aware that there's some hurdle in the way of that person getting what he or she wants. So I bring out here that there can be more than one plot. And that sounds really strange, but think of it in this way. A sitcom, which means situational comedy, usually like 23 minutes on TV. You'll have your A plot, that means the main conflict that's going on, but over on the side you're going to have what's called a B plot, which is another little something happening, but it's not the main conflict with the main protagonist. It's not the main focus, but there will be more than one conflict in a story. The plot structure can only focus on one at a time, though. Here's our third. It tells you where it's located there. Rising action. It's tension. It's rounds in a boxing match. At one point it looks like the protagonist is going to win. Then the next point, the antagonist gets something over him, and it's back and forth and back and forth. It's a pushing, gaining ground and losing ground. Moves and counter moves, as it is said in the movie Hunger Games. So my note here is that, and by the way, the antagonist is not necessarily the bad guy. It's easy for me to say that. And it's easy for me to say the protagonist is the good guy. One of the plays we read, the protagonist is one of the worst people you could ever meet. But because that is the person we're following through the story, he is called the protagonist. And in that case, the antagonistic forces or people are actually trying to do what's good. I bring out here that it doesn't necessarily have to be a human, doesn't have to be man versus man, or even man versus animal. This could be an internal struggle, so it could be toward a person's own weakness. And the opponent needs to be strong. We have to really believe on this rising action that at some point our hero, so to speak, may not win this time. Especially if it's a repeating hero like 007. I use James Bond as an example. We have to really think, for this to be a true, believable conflict, we have to believe he may not make it this time. Next, we're familiar with the climax. That's the pinnacle, that's the peak. And using my metaphor of a boxing match, the rising action are the rounds, the climax is the knockout punch, where one is not getting up for more, it's over with. So the climax is decisive end to this struggle that we've been going through with the rising action. Falling action, recovery, catching one's breath, surprise, amazement. There's not many events that are going to be on the falling action. Okay, so here's my note. So in the moment the villain can't push the button to launch the missile, the moment that stopped is the climax. The next moment, which might be him in shock or anguish, and the hero is catching his breath and cheering, that is happening on the falling action. Because the tension is done with, so this is after the tension. Resolution. So this is the angle coming off of the falling action, but not quite flat yet. It's that angle. Closure, wrap up. It's the moment we're positive that this ordeal is over with. Someone's taken to jail, someone's buried, put in the ground. It is closure. So resolution is quick, but it makes it very clear that this event is over with. It's the opposite of the inciting event. Now here's a French word that is pretty difficult to spell, dénouement, and this is the flat line. It's the opposite of the exposition coming in, the dénouement goes out. So untying the knot, the loose ends of the story. If you ever watch the credits of a story that's based on a true life event and they show you the pictures of the characters who are really people and what they went on to do, you're witnessing a dénouement. It's the untying of the knots. What happened to them? Where are they? How are we leaving these characters? In detective movies, I like Sherlock Holmes. In detective movies, the dénouement is the last few minutes where he explains how he figured everything out. He's untying the knot of how he did it. So this is the camera angle going out. We're leaving the characters. There's separation of audience and characters, whether they're leaving us by riding off into the sunset, big crane shot, or we're pulling back somehow, but we're leaving them. The story is over. Just a little interesting point that we have 7 points on the plot structure. Besides the climax, everything has a mirror opposite. Exposition, cameras in. The opposite of that is dénouement, actually. I put resolution, but it's dénouement. I will change that. Inciting event starts everything off. We're first aware of conflict. Resolution is when that's put to rest. So what started is now put to rest. Rising action is leading up. Falling action, it must come down. So here's a picture that I pulled. What's missing here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that means there's 2 missing there. See if you can figure that out. Here's the same graphic. I'm going to explain why I like this graphic is because I like how it shows that this is the majority of our time is spent here. About 90% of the movie. When I did the regular plot structure, I would draw it with the straight, very balanced on each side. The students would think that the climactic event was in the middle of the movie or the book. And it's not. It's the reason we stick around, and after the climax, we don't have much reason to stay there. We just kind of spend 10, 15 minutes in a movie to find out what happens to them, and then that's the end. All right, thank you for listening. I hope you learned.